Ho bloody ho, my name is Tony. I just finished the Medusa Touch video and thought, I don't think I'll get another one in before the new year. And I was going to leave it there for 2022, concentrate on earning a living, try and make it appear that I was enthusiastically invested in working so that my ass doesn't get fired. Then I thought, what about Christmas? Shouldn't you do one for Christmas, you Scroogey twat? Motherfucking humbug, I told myself. But then, goodwill to all men? Yeah, right. Despite the pandemic restrictions being lifted and things calming down and opening up again, it's been an undeniably shit year. There's an energy crisis, a cost of living crisis. We've had more prime ministers than Joe Biden's had brain cells die off. One of whom, somebody trusts, had the shortest time in office in history, but still had enough microseconds in her to drive a stiletto heel into the balls of a dying economy and kick it into the grave, whilst her chancellor shoveled cemetery dirt onto it at unprecedented speed. The Queen, wisely and with impeccable timing, seeing impending catastrophe looming, chose to join her husband in death, thinking to herself, one's had quite enough of this shit, and I certainly don't fucking blame her. The rich and privileged continue to whine sanctimoniously and narcissistically about how hard they've got it, what with their mental health and other self-absorbed personality disorder issues, whilst the poor go cold and hungry and die, and workers must strike for a fair shake because they don't have enough money to turn on the lights and feed their children. Idiots glue themselves to motorways and throw soup over works of art, screaming, just stop oil, whilst the increasingly impotent police stand around playing pocket billiards watching them do it. I mean, fanatics breaking the law, being a public nuisance, putting lives at risk. How can you justifiably arrest people for that? Just stop oil? A few more weeks and no one will be able to afford any fucking oil. So wish fulfillment then, for you lazy, idle, brain-dead fuckers with nothing better to do with your meaningless, pathetic lives than fuck up everybody else's even further. Me, I go through an entire pandemic like I'm bulletproof, and just as things pick up and limp towards normal, I get COVID twice. What the fuck? I'm supposed to be retired and sat on my fat ass drinking beer and dicking around all day, but what happens? I have to go back to work, because drinking beer and dicking around all day are luxuries I can no longer comfortably afford, along with preventing hypothermia, keeping a roof over my head, and putting food in my face. And now, like the reanimated corpse of a WWE zombie wrestler looking to chew turkey leg and kick tinsel whilst wearing a maggot-infested Santa suit, here comes Christmas, spastically jerking over the horizon and heading right for us. Well, deck my fucking balls. Tra-la-la-la-la-la-la-la! But it's okay. No, really it is. It's going to be okay. Because everything pales into insignificance in the face of the knowledge that the megalomaniacal mutant cockroach eating away inside Vladimir Putin's brain is soon gonna chow down on the very last cells governing reason and restraint. Then it will all be over. And no one will need to worry about anything anymore. Now I'm guessing that's not really the message of Christmas cheer you might have wanted, and it's probably not the one that King Charles is going to deliver to the nation in his first King's speech on Christmas Day, if we make it that far. So what I'm going to do is this. For the rest of this video, I'm going to try and cheer you up. And the film I've chosen for this year's festive review is just the sort of comedy classic Christmas movie we need in these dark days. Okay, so it's not strictly a comedy or a classic, or a Christmas movie for that matter, but what have you got to lose? Therefore, I deliver unto you this festering season, The Passage. The Passage, released in 1979, is a World War II war movie, the heartwarming and life-affirming tale of a brave family courageously navigating their way over the snow-capped mountains to freedom from the tyranny of those evil Nazi bastards. Wait, you think? Isn't that The Sound of Music? A film traditionally screened at Christmas? Well, yes it is, but the storyline of The Passage is somewhat similar. Only there are no Hollywood show tunes, no singing and dancing nuns, no precocious nausea-inducing kids, and no saccharine overloaded romance. This is The Sound of Music stripped to the bone and flipped into a delirious fiasco of hilarious madness and bloody explosive sadistic mayhem. The Passage is the Antichrist sister of The Sound of Music, and although it's not what any sane person would consider a good film or family-friendly fare, it is a ludicrous blast of wild, wacky and wicked fun. But first, here's a promotional message about the weight loss motivational version of The Sound of Music, brought to you by my sponsor, Fat Fuck Films. But first, here's a promotional message about the weight loss motivational version of The Sound of Music, brought to you by Fat Fuck Films. For the first time on the big screen, weight loss motivational videos bring you, in association with Fat Fuck Films, The Sound of Munching, featuring such musical classics as Dough a Donut, I Am 16 Going on 17 Stone, How Do You Solve a Problem Like My Rear, Idle Swine, and Climb Every Treadmill. If you're thinking of feeding your fat fucking face this festive season, this is the film you need to see. Certificate FG, Fat Gut. It's the Second World War, and Anthony Quinn is the Basque, a tough, grizzled shepherd living on the snowy Pyrenean slopes in a robust hovel he shares with his sheep. It must stink like fucking there, but I guess the sheep are used to it. Two members of the French resistance turn up. They are Renaudot, Michael Lonsdale, and Perret, Marcel Bazoufi. They want the Basque to help an American scientist, Bergson, James Mason, escape to neutral Spain over the Pyrenees before the Nazis find him and force him to work for them. The Basque was a skilled mountaineer who knows the terrain, but he's more concerned with the well-being of his sheep. Until they offer him a shitload of money, that is, and the flock ceases to matter quite as much. The Basque will give them 4 days of his time. Travelling to Nazi-occupied Toulouse to pick up the boffin, the Basque finds him hiding away in the attic of a bordello, along with his frail and physically fucked up wife, Patricia Neal, resentful son Paul Clemens, and sparky daughter Leah, Kay Lenz. He's a bit put out to discover that he's expected to take the whole family unit, but as the Nazis close in and the motley gang have to make a run or limp for it, he threatens to leave anyone who can't keep up behind to die. So the writing's pretty much on the wall for Ma Bergson then, who looks like she would struggle to mount a footstool. Now the point where the film hurdles off the rails and never comes back. Enter Malcolm McDowell as Captain von Berkow of the SS. He's been charged with the job of capturing Bergson. Apparently McDowell only took the role because he had a big tax bill to pay, and he was hell-bent on channeling as much over-the-top cartoon evil and depravity into his characterization and performance as humanly possible. He is quoted as saying, "I was determined to have fun with it. If I was going to play a Nazi, I was going to take it totally over the top and do it right. I ended up playing the character like a pantomime queen." Yep, he certainly fucking succeeded there. He's off the chart, but more of that later. Taking a train to get the hell out of Dodge, the Basque, the Bergsons and Perret have to bail out when the Nazis come calling. There's a firefight in which anything that gets shot, vehicle or structure, bursts into flames and explodes. It's a running theme throughout. Shoot something inanimate, it blows up. Utterly stupid, but really good fun to watch. Meanwhile, von Berkow has captured Renaudot. At first the interrogation is rather pedestrian, but soon spirals into an exploitation-flavoured nightmare of grisly torture porn, with Michael Lonsdale stripped to the waist in a kitchen, while von Berkow, in a white apron and chef's hat, ladles boiling soup over him, and then proceeds to amputate his fingers with a kitchen knife while shouting, "Here, I'll show you. It's easier." Throwaway comments like "we only invaded France to steal your recipes" and "you French can't stand other people's cooking" supplement the surreal madness on display. The Basque and his morbidly depressed troupe are loose in the countryside. He encounters a band of gypsies in the process of relocating far away from the Germans and persecution. Their leader, known as the Gypsy, Christopher Lee, agrees to conceal them amongst his extended family of Romany types, feral mutts and crusty jugglers for a cash payment, which is fine. until Von Berkow happens along and detains the caravan. He takes something of a shine to Leah, who he mistakes for a gypsy girl. He whisks her away to his quarters for a romantic tryst, has her stripped naked, take a shower, then, after revealing his novelty underpants with a swastika emblazoned on the front of them, casually rapes her. Yes, you heard that correctly. Malcolm McDowell's character is wearing a swastika on his cock. After the deed is done, just to reinforce the depraved nature of the average Nazi, Von Berkow demands Leah turn over. Is this leading where you fear it might be? Yes, it is. Von Berkow has a hankering for an alternative sort of passage, yet more conclusive evidence that Nazis were perverted, anally fixated chocolate factory bandits to a man. I wonder if Kay Lenz thought this was the rear end of her career. Bet it felt like it. The Basque busts into Von Berkow's quarters, kills a guard and gets Leah back. Then the fugitives head for the mountains. Von Berkow tortures the gypsy for information, as if Christopher Lee hasn't been tortured enough simply by appearing in this film. Tied to a kitchen chair in front of his people and unceremoniously doused in petrol, Lee does his best to look noble and defiant rather than embarrassed. While Von Berkow postures around with a lit cigarette, one of the gypsy's sons tells him where the Bergsons are headed in order to spare his father's life. Von Berkow is pleased, and to show his gratitude, casually tosses his cigarette over his shoulder, turning the gypsy into a Romany candle.
Will you let my father go? Oh yes, I always keep my word. He can go to exactly where he told me to go. Hell!
He then has all the transient travellers machine-gunned to death, all in a day's work, and what a work ethic Von Berkow has. The Basque and company are busy ascending into the snowy and treacherous mountain slopes of the Pyrenees. With 4 soldiers and a guide press-ganged into service, Von Berkow is on their trail. Mrs. Bergson's health is deteriorating alarmingly. As she seemed to be about 5 minutes away from imminent death anyway, this is hardly out of the blue. The Basque leads them to an abandoned climber's lodge where they spend the night. Mrs. Bergson decides that she is a burden and slowing the others down. During the night, she goes all Captain Lawrence Edward Grace Titus Oates. You know, I'm just going outside and maybe some time, as legend has it. The Basque and Perret see her leave whilst the others are sleeping. But hey, you know, she ain't wrong. She's a fucking Jonah. So they do nothing to stop her. In the morning, she's found frozen to death. Her grieving family bury her oh so respectfully in the snow, with her head exposed and her feet sticking out. Why? I don't think I'll ever know. But if anyone has any ideas, I'm more than happy to hear them. Other than that, it's a weird black comedy moment that may not have been intended that way. With Von Berkow gaining, Perret remains behind with a rifle. He picks off the soldiers, but whilst he's distracted, Von Berkow has snuck around behind him. He tosses a grenade at the hapless sharpshooter, advising catch, before performing a neat backflip out of the blast radius like a sort of mid-range tumbler in a Nazi circus.
Hey! Catch!
Against all odds, the Basque and the Bergsons reach a heavily guarded checkpoint, which they must breach to reach Spanish territory. In another firefight, the Bergsons reveal a hidden talent for firearms and slaughter, mowing down shitloads of Nazis and blowing up whatever shit they shoot at. Alone after shooting his guide in the back, Von Berkow continues to pursue the Bergsons up the mountains. The Basque draws his fire, popping up and down on a snowy ridge like a bobbing fairground duck, shouting German phrases like Sieg Heil and Schweinhund. The gunshots cause an avalanche which flattens the living piece out of Von Berkow. They make it to the Basque sheep shed and all seems well until Von Berkow, drenched in blood and raving, bursts in with a pistol. Quinn and Mason defeat him by repeatedly telling him he is close to death and will soon die. He takes his information to heart, succumbs to his injuries and keels over, deader than Bing Crosby in a bunker. I'll start by citing some positives. Hold on. Yeah, alright. The cast is a great lineup of proven talent. The cinematography, one critic of the time felt was dreadful, seemingly confusing what he was watching with the quality of the film itself. Michael Reed was director of photography for Honor Majesty's Secret Service, so knew how to frame snowy environs and wintry landscapes. The visuals, to my eye, are sweeping, engaging, and absolutely fine. The score by Michael J. Lewis, who composed for the Medusa Touch, is serviceable, quite melodic in places, and suits the period period setting and on-screen action. J. Lee Thompson, just before he became a house director for Cannon, had some pedigree backing him up. He directed Quinn previously in the wartime classic The Guns of Navarone and in The Greek Tycoon the previous year. The screenplay is by historical novelist Bruce Nicholson, based on his book Perilous Passage, which was called an unforgettable thriller of human endurance and Nazi brutality. Now, I haven't read it, but I'd be willing to bet that Bert of Bert's Books has, so if that's the case, maybe he could clue us in as to what it's like. It might have been good. As a novel. As for the rest, The Passage is one howling, cardboard cutout cartoon misfire that holds the hypnotic quality of a slow-motion train wreck or plane crash. The script and dialogue are mind-melting trash. If you're anything like me, God help you, you won't be able to look away. And the magnetic core is Malcolm McDowell. If for no other reason, this film demands to be seen purely to experience his performance. He manages the rare achievement of being both the best and worst thing about it. Your jaw will drop. Really, truly hit the fucking floor, snap shut, breaking your teeth, and hit the floor again. Anthony Quinn specialised in these sort of earthy, ethnic action man portrayals, so for him this was a walk in the park. And he does look almost capable of climbing up a mountain. Unlike James Mason, who has little to do but show up and try and express emotional intelligence and humanity amidst all the carnage. Patricia Neal, who had suffered strokes, looks on the verge of another major cerebrovascular accident every time the camera finds her. Chris Lee appeared relieved to be set alight and removed from the proceedings, and poor Kay Lenz looks generally miserable and dismayed throughout, most likely wishing she was anywhere else, doing anything else. Her nude scenes and rape are not exactly handled with sympathetic sensitivity. The action and pyrotechnics are efficiently executed and pleasing enough, and the undercurrent of sadism and brutality certainly diverting in its incredulously exploitational way. So bad it's good? Not exactly. So bad that it's a wickedly entertaining kick in the nuts? Yes, it most certainly is. I'm not recommending this because it's great cinematic art. I'm recommending it because it's a laugh-out-loud disaster that comes close to defying logical description. Is it preferable to The Sound of Music? Oh, it most definitely fucking is, yes. And if it doesn't distract you from your troubles for at least a short while, consider you might be dead and they've forgotten to tell you. Thanks for your time and attention. That's it from me for 2022. I would just like to take this opportunity to wish you all the merriest Merry Christmas and the happiest Happy New Year you can possibly experience. And remind you that no matter how bad things seem, they can always get worse, so make the most of how bad they are now. I fully intend to return in 2023 with more joy, frivolity and good-natured, soul-elevating cheer. You can count on me. Meanwhile, here's a song called The Last Estate. See you on the other side of the mountain, pilgrims.
Sit and wait for debtors, prison, traitors' gate, and whatever else befalls on Christmas Day. The ashes in the grate, cold and grey as time grows late, with a damp patch on the wall well underway. Give us this day the time to make amends with family and friends and any passers-by. Just once we pass this way, and when our journey ends, let no one ever say we didn't try. Put some turkey on the plate and pull a beer from the crate. Sit and eat and drink this Christmas Day. We cannot clean the slate, tenants of the last estate, no matter what we think or what we say. Please give us this day the time to make amends with family and friends and any passers-by. Just once we pass this way, and when our journey ends, let no one ever say we didn't try. Remember the snow in December, white Christmas once in a blue moon. It landed the same year as the wrecking balls, with the letters to get out damn soon. Debate. I'm dreaming love and peace this Christmas day. For we will sit and wait as tenants of the last estate until the ranks of our police take us away. Please give us this day the time to make amends with family and friends and any passers-by. Just once we pass this way, and when our journey ends, let no one ever say we didn't try not to die.